I'm a swine veterinarian. If you've been a swine veterinarian in the last 40 years, PRRS has been one of the biggest thorns in one side. You know, some recent data would say in the US alone, PRRS is costing close to $1 billion a year in the swine industry. That's over a couple $1,000,000 a day. If you visit with current swine practitioners, that's one of the most common problem that they'd like to deal with and remove. Now, we're all concerned about African swine fever and preventing that from being a significant problem, but a problem every day that swine producers and veterinarians face is PRRS. And we talk about the economic loss, but when we talk about welfare, what's more impacting on pigs' welfare than disease and death from a disease? And a worker on a farm, a swine producer that's dedicated, that gets enjoyment of pigs doing well and being healthy, there's nothing that's going to impact their morale harder or be more frustrating than when you have a disease from PRRS going on in the herd.
My name is Beth Galbraith. I work for Microbial Discovery Group. We are the microbial partner with United Animal Health. My role involves the discovery and development of new strains of direct-fed microbials for the animal agriculture industry.
My name is Kyle Leistico. I've been with MDG now for about 8 years, and one of the research and development group leads here at Microbial Discovery Group.
So I came here in November of 89, and I've been here ever since at the University of Illinois. I moved up the ranks to be a full professor, and I've done a lot of things. And I mean, it's just fascinating. The impact that the gut flora has is just enormous. And people are finally, because it's so complicated, you need to understand physiology, microbiology, immunology, signaling, and most people don't have the bandwidth for all that. So finally, people are realizing, yeah, this is true. The impact is significant. So it's gaining traction in the scientific community. It's nice to see.
The microbiome is often touted as the second brain of both humans and animals. And we know that now because of all of the ability to sequence strains that we were never able to cultivate in the past. These strains perform a variety of different complex attributes and processes in interactions both in and on the body. And we know how much the microbiome has actually influenced both clinical diseases in animals, clinical diseases in humans. And, you know, historically, the plan and the mechanisms associated with probiotics have all kind of fallen under this idea of, you know, priming the immune system or competing with pathogens, antimicrobial production, enzymatic activities in the lower digestive tract. But what's really kind of come on the scene in the last 5 to 10 years is this understanding of how the gut, specifically in animals and in humans, can help shape behavior. And a lot of the complex processes that help drive that are the interactions and the chemical signals that are produced by these bacteria for these bacteria that then travel up and interact with neuroreceptors in the brain. And so one of the things that a lot of people have started to ask the questions is like, how can we reduce addictive behaviors? How can we reduce behavioral and cognitive impairments? And a lot of clinical research that's really exciting is coming out, is telling us that changing your diet, changing the probiotics, changing the bacterial microflora in the gut can actually have an impact on that.
Direct-fed microbials, of course, I think can absolutely play an important role in this microbial crosstalk. This influencing the host and the microbiota can aid in digestion, can aid in detoxification, immune function, inhibition of undesirable microorganisms, establishment of beneficial ones, and DFMs can play a really important role in that.
Provan ECL is a multi-strain direct-fed microbial that is, in essence, a concoction of different strains with different attributes, and they are specifically different bacillus strains with different attributes. We have strains in there that have antimicrobial capabilities, specifically against certain gram-negative pathogens, certain gram-positive pathogens. We have strains in there with varying enzymatic activities that can help digest low-end, back-end fermentation processes in the hindgut. But more importantly, those strains were actually all sourced from animals. Those strains were sourced from pigs. So we have a proprietary process for strain selection at MDG that we partner with, and we share this information with United that, through quite a few different statistical approaches, we can identify strains that have unique attributes that come from uniquely high performing pigs. And so we have more assurance basically when we put these back into pigs that they're not going to be a performance drain. And if anything, we found out that they were actually a performance improvement here in this event because we're reducing disease. So basically, yeah, it's a multi-strain direct-fed microbial, and each strain is put in there for a unique purpose.
The interest on DFMs or probiotics is growing. I mean, the scientific community has finally kind of come to the realization that there is a big influence of the gut flora on health, and now more and more the veterinarians are becoming aware of it, and as well as animal scientists. So nutrition is for sure.
So PathConX is really a connection of different pathogens that helps us explain how to manage disease, but also improve performance. And so we've been using that now for about 7 or 8 years to answer a variety of questions. I mean, it doesn't just have to be with pathogens. It could also be about how pathogens, specifically bacterial, interact with different viruses. It could be how we track bacterial populations over the life cycle of an animal. So our partnership has actually yielded quite a few interesting studies that otherwise, without this expertise on both ends, we wouldn't have otherwise done. So it's really opened up the doors to ask unique questions.
When PRRS was present as a viral entity in the disease complex on farms, we were seeing a bigger impact from inclusion of the product of Provent in the diets. So then we thought, well, then how is this working? There was some great working going on about the impact of the microbiome on the overall response to all diseases, particularly viruses. So when we took the next step, we brought in some additional experts in Dr. Zuckerman from the University of Illinois. He's a well-known global expert in PRRS, but also he has the facility and teams and experience to run a controlled study to really prove the hypothesis in a setting where all inputs could be better controlled, that we'd have even more confidence of this hypothesis and the impact it was having.
Early on, when we were kind of tentatively testing this PathConX pilot program, one of the things that kept coming up first was salmonella. And we were always asked, well, E. coli was kind of our bread and butter. That was one of the things that we had kind of created Provent off of. And we were continuously being asked, well, what about salmonella? What about salmonella? And these organisms are different in both their ability to cause disease, but also their ability to evade the immune system. And the reason we kind of went into this paper was to ask that very question, because we had identified strains with anti-salmonella properties, but we didn't necessarily know how that would play out in an in vivo system. The other thing that we kept being asked about was viruses. And we were asked about PED, we were asked about PRRS, we were asked about rotavirus. And we saw an opportunity, because the literature is so sparse in the effects, or the potential benefits, I should say, of the use of direct-fed microbials against virus or viral infections. We know that viruses play off the immune system. PRRS specifically attacks the immune system and invades macrophages. So knowing what we knew about our strains, knowing what we knew about how the mechanisms of direct-fed microbials typically work, we thought we stand a pretty good chance here. So when we went into having this conversation with our collaborators at the University of Illinois, we met with people that were PRRS experts. We met with people that had some really good ideas about how to apply this effectively, that would kind of mimic a real world environment, but also ask real world questions that both veterinarians and producers would have.
Most people that have looked at probiotics or DFMs, they do mostly in mice, right? Only some studies more and more in pigs and chickens. But most of them are mostly like observational, or they give the probiotic or the DFM and then see what is the effect of growth, health, efficiency. But not many studies actually have done a challenge with a pathogen. And none of them have done a co-challenge. I mean, given a virus and a bacteria, that's a really significant challenge you're putting the animal through. So that's a pretty stringent test of any possible effect that the probiotic might have on the health of an animal.
So what we did was we applied a very specific PRRS strain to Salmonella challenge, Salmonella specifically, cholera suis. We gave it to these animals, and we asked whether or not, if these animals had been previously administered Provent, would the outcomes or the side effects of this viral bacterial co-infection be mitigated? Could we reduce the effects of viremia? Could we reduce the effects of disease if direct-fed microbials are actually applied?
We had a great team working on this from United, from MDG, and also the University of Illinois. And, the big takeaway is by impacting and improving the microbiome, we're able to have a positive impact on maintaining the health of pigs when they're exposed to PRRS.
The major takeaway that we saw was that administration of Provent ECL actually reduced the effects of viremia in animals. And that was something that we didn't expect. And specifically, we saw this effect in the lungs, which was exciting because these direct-fed microbials were ingested. So what is happening in the gut was, to a degree, becoming systemic and protecting the animal in an entirely different organ system. So that was the big take home. Another smaller take home that we're really still interested in trying to tease apart is what that connection is between the gut and the respiratory system. And then even more so, the biggest kind of unknown right now is that in a few of the animals, there was no detectable virus after administration. So for us, this could be a million different things, but it was really exciting to see that, we're not just priming the immune system to a point that it's helping control the pathogen. There might actually be some antagonistic activity from the bacteria themselves against the virus.
But the effect was more systemic. It was in the lung. That's where we saw the effect. And it was on the virus. What was surprising is that it seemed to have some type of an antiviral effect. So the animals had less virus than the DFM treated pigs had less virus in their blood and lung. And that was surprising.
I think that the impact on the dually challenged pigs with the PRRS virus and the decrease in viremia was somewhat unexpected. We know from the literature that the microbiota does have the capability to impact through the gut-lung axis, but to see it when we're feeding our 6-strain Bacillus product, to see that happen in the dually challenged pigs in this controlled environment was very exciting.
This being able to be published in a peer-reviewed journal that just helps people to have deeper confidence in the impact and potential value from the product.
When this happened, it feels like forever now, but this paper was actually just published a few months ago in Infection and Immunity. And we were really excited to kind of see the feedback that we got from the reviewers. They were all kind of taken aback a little bit about the data that we got, which was actually exciting. And then it actually resulted in a few follow-ups from people that are actual, bacterial pathologists asking, what's in this? How did you guys come up with this game plan? This is really interesting. We'd love to collaborate. So I think, just something as simple as an environmental surveillance program like PathConnex really helped us catapult this entire question and brought it to fruition like it has been.
Yeah. Well, first thing, I'd like to learn more. I get deeper in the paper and try to understand what it means. I think we always are going to have opportunities to try the product in situations to see if we can have an impact. So, like most veterinarians, they look at observational and data together. So is there a potential to explore this impact in a herd that's having a challenge with PRRS along with other diseases?
I don't want to convolute it any more than that. Direct-fed microbials work, and they're continuing to work in ways that we would have never otherwise thought they could.